Hello, everybody. This is the Ignite program, podcast sparked by BBB. And we have a guest here that I really haven't known that long. Mark Early is a lawyer. He represents Chesterfield County as a delegate. And so tell us about how did you become a delegate? Why did you want to become a delegate?
Yeah.
Why did you get in politics?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for having me, Barry and Evie. We appreciate the time. So I'm a lifelong Virginian. Grew up originally down from Chesapeake, around the beach area, but came up to Chesterfield when I was young, 12 years old. So I went to Midlow Middle, right across from Brookhouse Diner.
Yes.
and started high school at Midlow High. So I had always sort of been in and around the world of state government. As my father was a state senator, attorney general, so I had a window into it a little bit, but I was never, committed or dedicated to getting involved in it. I think, in my post-college, I got married right after school. My wife and I, we had a bunch of different experiences that sort of, I think, led us to this. So I'm an attorney by trade. We've also been foster parents the last, I forget, 5 or 6 years, something like that. So we've had about 6 kids come and go through the house, which has been a fascinating experience. But a lot of the legal work I did, initially, especially the first few years after law school, took a lot of court-appointed cases, which is, for anybody who knows sort of being in that world, it gives you a window into a lot of fascinating experiences and frankly a lot of worlds that I'm not a part of, right? I say a lot of times when you're taking those cases either as a guardian ad litem for foster kids or defense cases for folks that are in tough situations, something that was a constant was that you were meeting people very often not on their best day, but very often on their worst day, right? And you really get to see a lot of the things that they were struggling with, whether it was, all the things you'd imagine, right? Whether it's addiction, substance abuse, mental health issues, lack of employment, lack of housing, all these kind of things. And, one thing that as I sort of, looked out in the world of the community, whether it's education policy, whether it's criminal policy, whether it's, economic development and all those sort of things. A lot of the things that I didn't love or I didn't like how they were going, it was very clear to me that some of the folks who bore sort of the toughest impact of those things were actually the people I was dealing with on a day-to-day basis. So that was one thing that really sort of grew my interest in policy and made me get more involved. And it was, running for office is a crazy experience in and of itself. But I'm one of the new guys down in the House of Delegates. So I'm sure you all know, we had this redistricting a couple years ago, right after the 2021 cycle. So I'm one of a pretty big freshman class. I think there's more new folks in the House of Delegates than any time since Reconstruction, I think. So it's really a fascinating experience. The first session was quite a learning experience, but a lot of the good folks down there doing, interesting work.
And one thing, I see in the General Assembly, people walk around with the pen and the pen starts to define them.
Yeah.
And Senator McDougal was here yesterday and doing a podcast and we talked about the pen and he even, he said it before I did, how you start to get in office and it starts to define you. That's the time you have to get out. And what I've seen from you and the reason I've asked you to do this podcast is because I see you in the community. I've run into you a number of times at events, whether you see me or not, doesn't really matter. But what I see is a genuine person. I met your wife. I talked to her before the election.
Yeah.
Straightforward. You need a good, whether it's a man or woman and you have a spouse, you need a supported home, right? For kids or to keep your head in not spinning all over. When I ran for Senate, I was worried about that with my wife because she would have been a good grounder for me if I won.
Sure.
But at the same time, she might have gotten the jersey in her might have come out a little bit. Might have been at the wrong event and might have said the wrong thing. So anyway, God knew what he was doing to keep me out of the Senate. But anyway, what do you think, citizens, where do we start to find candidates? I went to Sorensen, not to run. I wanted to sell cars to all of you. And yet I ran later on. Imagine that.
Right.
Carl Leonard and Dennis Profit, they had a epiphany, obviously. Yeah. So where do we find candidates? So where are we going to find? I know there's one group of people working on female candidates, right?
Mhm.
Good female candidates, wonderful.
Yeah.
But it goes back to the same point. We keep segregating. Where do we find good candidates? I don't care the color, the creed. I don't care about that. I want somebody that's going to serve and represent the community.
Yeah.
Where are we going to find these people?
I mean, I don't know if I have a great answer to that question. I don't think there's any particular place. I think what we need is folks who care about their communities. And what that really means is a more sort of fundamental truth about, and we've heard it all before because it's in the 10 Commandments, loving your neighbor, right? So, I mean, if you don't have a care about your neighbor or a love for your neighbor, it's not a good position to be in, right? And then beyond that, we need folks who are willing to work hard and willing to sort of dedicate themselves to those people. And I'm certainly far from perfect. I'm nowhere near that, but that's really what we're looking for. I think you just find those people out in the community. You find them in our churches, you find them in our schools, you find people who, I think especially nowadays, some of the best people are not sort of from this world. You know what I mean? They're folks who are doing other things. They're mothers who are raising kids. They're business people out doing business. There's just folks working and living their life and say, hey, listen, I have something to give and I have something to dedicate. And that's where some of the best folks come from for this sort of things. And I think what you said earlier is very true. I mean, everybody, and this is just a human condition point. I mean, everybody's looking for purpose. Everybody's looking for meaning. Everybody roots their identity somewhere. Right. If you root your identity, if you for some reason find yourself in a position of power, even if it's minimal power, if you root your identity in there, good luck to you, but even more good luck to the people you serve, because you're not going to be a good servant of them, right? Because you're going to be driven by sort of a pure ambition just to keep that at all costs, as opposed to serving the people that you're supposed to serve. So that is always, whether it's political power or whether it's business power, whatever, that's always sort of a threat to any human, because we all have that human nature instinct.
I think I think you hit on it. I started thinking about this, and it's the people that are our friends. And I think about, how did I go to run? So a couple of people knew me. They asked me to run. Dennis Profit first, Clarence Williams, and they all saw something in me, and that being great. But then you got to find the right person that's a good candidate, because as campaign managers tell you, don't worry, you run one way and then change. You say something now to get elected, and then change who you are later on. That was advice given to me by a couple of campaign managers. So obviously I didn't hire those, but unfortunately you have to hire somebody, but that's where I think you're still the same person you are. I met you before the election. I meet you today. You're the same guy, and you're the dad, and you're the community guy. And I think that's where we have to. So I was a terrible candidate. I would have been a great legislator. I know I would have been. Yeah. I would have been 2 terms. I had one lobbyist say, well, that wasn't a good thing to say because we want you there for a long time. I said, well, that's not, I can't afford it.
The lobbyists want those long-term relationships.
Correct.
Right. And they're not bad folks, but that's just in their interest.
That's in their interest. And at $18,000 a year, I said, that can't happen. I can't go more than 2 terms. I can't do it.
Yeah.
Because I can't be away from a job. Yeah. So I think you gave some great pointers. We'll let you go. Anything you want to add that I didn't cover, and how people can contact you?
Oh yeah, people can find us on our website or social media anytime, or come down and visit us at our office in Richmond. We'd love to have you down, especially if you're a constituent in Western Chesterfield. But any Virginian is welcome to come by anytime. We have an open door policy, and we would love to see you. So thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Mark Early. We are lucky to have you. And as an attorney, I think you're pretty good also. I just don't need an attorney. But thanks for participating here. And Sarah, thanks for arranging this. Even though you're on the camera.
Thanks, Barry. Thanks, Phoebe. I appreciate it.
Thank you.